everyone, Black and the Geek here, welcome back to a brand new video, and today I'm going to talk about underrated Doctor Who stories. So, I was watching a video recently of like underrated Doctor Who stories in the new series where they took a story from each Doctor that is underrated. I'll leave the link to the video in the description. And because underrated stories is always something I've wanted to talk about on the channel, I figured I would do something quite similar. So, I'm going to be choosing an underrated story from each Doctor in the new series. I'll be doing a classic one soon, but yeah, this is just for the new series at the minute. So for the Ninth Doctor, I've gone for the Unquiet Dead. I think this story, it tends to get shoved under the bus. It's like all the forgettable one, the average one. But no, it's a great one. I think it's a great sort of Charles Dickens ghost story. It's really cool. I think Charles Dickens as a historical figure is one of the best that we've seen in Doctor Who. He's just so humble and down to earth, and having learnt about what his life was like, some of the more emotional moments with him work and hit really well now that I'm more familiar with him. And I think that Gelth are quite a creepy monster, you know, they sort of ghost and they use the Time War, like their bodies dying in the Time War to manipulate the Doctor. I think that's really good, and how the sort of Doctor sort of lets them through the rift, and I think they're very good. I think they've aged quite well as well, their effect. I think because they're quite simplistic in their design, they're like sort of gas monsters. I think they hold up quite well considering a lot of the early new series 1 monsters looking a bit dated, and I think they're quite mesmerising in the way they look. They sort of look like almost like a light show in the sky. They're very mesmerising. But as I say, this is just a fun story with ghosts and Charles Dickens. Now for the 10th Doctor, I struggled a bit because there were a couple of stories that I was umming and ahhing about. I was thinking maybe Gridlock, because I really enjoyed that, the Sontaran two-parter, but no, I went with the Shakespeare Code. Again, it's another historical story which is a characters driven one, focusing on William Shakespeare, who's a great historical figure, I think. And I like how he's portrayed. He sort of subverts your expectations. You think of him as sort of like a really stuffy, secluded writer, but in this he's sort of portrayed as like a rock star of his age, like the popular one. And I like that subversion of the trope. I think the Carrionites are quite creepy in the story. I think they're very creepy in their appearance and their ways of killing people. Like when that guy sort of drowns from the voodoo magic, it's quite creepy, and I like the magic that's brought up, you know, like with spells and potions and broomsticks and, as I said, voodoo. It's really creepy stuff. I can understand why this isn't talked about as much, because it is in the early half of Series 3, and most people just think of the second half of Series 3 as like the best part, but I do enjoy this story. I do have a couple of qualms with the story. I think Martha, I get the impression that the writer didn't like writing for Martha because she comes across as a bit dumb. Like, how does she not know what Bedlam is, even though she's trained to be a doctor in London? Oh, and the whole 10 missing Rose stuff, I don't like, you know, like, oh, imagine if Rose was here, she'd know what to do. Ah. Sorry for my terrible Tennant impression, but I don't like that kind of stuff. See, the 11th Doctor, The Rings Back at 10. This one was easy. It was painful, but easy, because there's so many underrated Matt Smith stories. It's mental, but this one I think takes the top prize as the most underrated, because, I mean, nobody talks about it, really, and in a Doctor Who magazine poll from a good few years back, it was voted as the 9th worst Doctor Who story. It's nowhere near that bad. I mean, think about it. Matt Smith's performance in this is incredible. His speech at the end is incredible. Like, it's just beautiful. His performance is so nuanced. Clara, whether you like her or not as a character, you've got to at least appreciate that this story gives her some character. And that's something I can appreciate, even though I don't like Clara that much as a character. I think the direction is particularly great in this episode. And, because, you know, there's a great uses of colour grading and lighting. It works beautifully to create a really vibrant, colourful world. And speaking of which, the world building is spectacular. It's so fleshed out, so developed. It makes you want to travel to this planet. Like, if I was the Doctor's companion, this would be a planet that I'd happily go to. It seems so interesting and so lively. I love it. Also, the Long Song, which is the song that everyone sings, is beautiful. A great piece by Murray Gold. Now, for Capaldi, I struggled a bit, because there was a few stories I was umming and ahhing about, especially from Series 10. But I ended up going with The Empress of Mars. Now, in Series 10, there's this story, and there's two other stories which people tend to dislike. There's the Monk trilogy, and then there's the Eaters of Light. And the Empress of Mars is sandwiched in between those episodes. I think the day I'm filming this is the Empress of Mars' 3rd year anniversary, so yay. But anyway, I'm getting off topic anyway. So yeah, it's sandwiched in between those two not really liked stories, and it gets slumped in with them as like, oh, it's not a very good story. No, it shouldn't. It's a brilliant little pulp sci-fi story, and I really enjoy it. Obviously, Capaldi's great in it. I mean, he's great in everything. And same for Bill. She's brilliant as well. I love Bill. And I think the Ice Warriors are really cool. And specifically Friday, I think he's a great individual Ice Warrior. He's got quite a bit of character to him. You do sympathise with him. And the Empress Ice Warrior, I think she's a great character as well. I think the human characters, while not the most memorable, are quite well defined. I think they're quite... You do remember them. They're not the most fleshed out. But yeah, you do remember them. I think the direction's quite good. These set pieces are really cool, like that cannon is really cool. And yeah, there's some great stuff. It's great to see them on Mars because that's their home planet, and at this point we hadn't seen it before. And there's some just great stuff. And the Alpha Centauri cameo at the end was a lovely little touch and a great callback to the Pertwee era. And speaking of the Pertwee era, this honestly feels like a Jon Pertwee story, just modernised for the modern age. I love it so much. Right, Jodie Whittaker. The Tsuranga Conundrum. Never in a million years. Now, the story I'm going to go with is Can You Hear Me? Now, a lot of people seem to slump this episode in with, like, the Orphan 55s, the Praxiuses, you know, because it's not part of the story arc of Series 12. But I don't think it should be lumped with them, because I think this is a brilliant story. I think the concept is great. It's a really sort of twisted, dark story. You know, cosmic sci-fi elements and gothic horror elements mixed together. It's a great combination. I think Zelin is such a good villain. I think, you know, with his creepy fingers, it's really creepy. And this episode is beautifully crafted. Like, you've got great imagery, like the planets, the 2 planets. Zelin's fingers, as I said. The werewolf is really cool. Like, and the cave painting animation sequence, that was a really cool thing and really unexpected, but I really liked it. And the visuals and the direction, I say a lot for Series 12 that the direction's great, but here it makes it feel so surreal and dreamy and artsy. Like, the scene that stands out for me is when Graham's handing out the cards and he sort of sees visions of the god trapped in the planets, and it sort of clouds the screen, and it's beautifully done. And the mental health allegory is done brilliantly, I think. I think the themes of, like, the gods and their fears, like, the nightmares, sort of mirroring people's fears in real life. Brilliant touch. I think the title's quite clever. Can You Hear Me? I always interpret that as sort of people who feel like their voices aren't being heard. I feel that's quite clever. Yaz's stuff is brilliant. Great character development. And I'm okay with Graham's cancer scene, because a lot of people are saying, oh, the doctor should have said something. But realistically, what do you say in that situation? When someone says, oh, I'm scared my cancer's going to come back, what do you say in that situation? It's hard to say something on the spot. So I find that more genuine, that the doctor's unsure what to say, because she knows, because that sort of implies to me that she knows the seriousness of the situation. That's just how I interpret it. And I understand this episode's not everyone's cup of tea, but for me, I found it brilliant. So I hope you enjoyed the video. What are some of your underrated stories? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And this is Clack of the Geek, signing out.